My name's Nikki Evans. I joined the Fire Service Control Room in 1984.
I'm Nicola Lamb. I'm 34 and I'm a firefighter at Rushden Fire Station in Northamptonshire.
I am Debbie Samwell. I'm Change Manager with the Cultural Change team within the Enabling Services function that covers police and fire.
Hello, my name's Sophia Perkins. I'm 24 years old and I joined Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service as a firefighter in January of 2024.
I'm Claire Aldersey. I joined the fire service in 1989 as a firefighter.
I'm Lisa Jackson. I am the Area Manager, Head of Business Services for Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service. I've been in the fire service 34 years, only with Northamptonshire for the last year.
I've seen a lot of changes in 40 years. I received my long service 40-year medal last year.
I started in the fire control in 1995 as fire control operator, and I worked my way up through the ranks.
I started my career in fire protection as fire staff, as an admin assistant, then moved through to fire control where I worked for a number of years, but whilst doing that I was also an on-call firefighter in Bedfordshire for 10 years.
I'm Claire Harrison, Senior Equality Officer, so it's my job really to look at the culture and to really look at how we progress the situation for women and all the protected characteristics in fact, and making sure that people are more aware and they're more inclusive. But yeah, it's a really great role to have.
I feel like International Women's Day is significant because it's about celebrating our journey as women and our progression within society. I don't think we're quite there yet with equality, but I think with every day we are getting one step closer.
International Women's Day is important because it brings women together. It shows that we have common goals, common experiences, common dreams for our future, and that we can celebrate where we've been, how far we've come and where we're going to in the future.
It's a chance for us as women to put our point across, to explain what we've had to do for me in the last 40 years to get where we are today. It's important, and we need to let the women of today know that we've had to go through these changes and these phases for them now to carry on and do a great job.
International Women's Day is important because it gives an opportunity for us not only to celebrate women within the organisation but also recognise how far we've come in our history within the emergency services, and I think that's really important that we capture where we were and we capture what we've achieved so far, and who knows what we'll carry on doing in the future.
I think that it's a journey that we're still on. We still have a long way to go, and I think it's really important to be highlighting all the areas that we still need to improve on.
We've come so far, but we have so much more that we can do as women, and actually having that equality, having the ability to have women at all levels is just creating such incredible diversity of thought. It's creating levels of leadership that are unparalleled to what it's ever been before, and we need to celebrate it. We need to celebrate confidence like there's never been before. We need to celebrate women having the audacity to step forward and be themselves and just push through those glass ceilings.
How did you get on in control, being like one of the first women in there?
When I joined, I think we've got about four or five women in there, and to me it seemed like old blokes that had been in there for 100 years.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, who's she then? She's a bit young, why does she want to join the control room? And you were just treated a bit like sort of just put her over there, we've trained her up now, and it was all, well, she won't last, she's not going to last long,
I think, you have to prove yourself at every point. Even when I'd been 10 years as a firefighter and left with an injury and returned 10 years later to do the job I'm doing now as equipment manager, and even then I felt like people were testing me, test your intellect, test your ability, test your knowledge and understanding, testing your physicality. And I'd have to, if there weren't enough people around, I'd be wearing a dress and throw on a pair of toe detectors and go and help them put a 13.5 metre ladder back on the truck because there was no one else to do it. And kind of gradually they realised you weren't there.
Yeah.
Because you were a DEI hire, you were there because you deserved to be there, and you had that experience. And it's taken a long time, and that's the change I think that's happened, is that the people when I joined this job who were firefighters, crew managers, watch managers, are now, you know, station managers, group managers, area managers and higher, and they've grown up with you, so they understand your knowledge and understanding. You know, they have more respect for you. I don't think it's about everyone liking you, but it certainly is people recognising that you do know your job, you are competent at your job and skilled, and you can add value. And I think that that's the nicest thing that I've seen in terms of change, is that I do feel that people do listen to me, whereas I didn't think that they did.
You didn't really have, did you, until really recently, very many women leaders that you would aspire, that would, you know, and I'm a great believer in what you see you can be, so I think that at schools we don't do enough of that, and I still don't think we do. You know, and people will talk to me, and they probably spoke to you about when you were a firefighter, and they think you've got some superpowers, and you're like, just a normal human being. And there wasn't very many women leaders at all. There wasn't.
And even now it's the same, isn't it? Because I remember going to like a community breakfast event over at Kettering Fire Station. I'd been invited to it, and I sort of rocked up like you do. And this councillor came up to me and said, "Oh, so you have women then in the service?" And that was not that long ago. And it's like, yeah, I've been here for quite a while actually. You know, but they're not visible, are we? Just not seen.
No, and I don't know if you experienced that when you was riding the pumps as well.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, you know, you'd be at an incident and you'd be, wow. I remember being an RTC, and you know, and the guy was trapped in the car, and he says, "Not being funny, love, I'd rather one of the men help me." And I was like, oh my lord.
No, I'd get women saying that to me all the time. I wouldn't want you to rescue me, and I'd be, that's fine, I'll leave you.
I think it's important for us is the fact that we, you know, I always say we leave the ladder down.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Because it is, isn't it?
Definitely.
You know, all the stuff that we've been through, like we've said, haven't we? There was hardly any uniform, there was no toilet facilities, there was no sanitary items.
No maternity.
There was no menopause, there was no agile working, flexible working or anything like that, was there? Whereas now, we're at that point where we've got that, and it's quite exciting what else is going to come after that. We've all had to go and have those battles and have those conversations and have the doors shut on us sometimes and then go and kick it back in again.
I also think our next generation have been brought up in such a different way and in a different culture, which is so refreshing, that they are willing to challenge even maybe more than we ever did.
Which is good,
and I think that's amazing. So, you know, I just think we will see more and more diverse workforce, and that's brilliant.
But without sacrificing quality, and I think that's the thing
definitely.
that people go on about, and especially at the moment in the political atmosphere that we've got, where DEI is a dirty word. It's like, well, if it wasn't for diversity, you know, a lot of, I mean, I think what's not understood is a lot of firefighters and a lot of people in this job tend to have be neurodiverse.
That's a good thing.
Exactly, because we all think differently. You know, we don't think linearly. You know, we think in a way that kind of brings a different solution to problems that are out there. And you know, people tend to be very solution focused and tend to adapt, and you know, that's what we need in this kind of environment, because a lot of it is reactive, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also think that the fire service has changed so much, particularly in promotion and things like that. It isn't necessarily, you know, yes, you know your craft and you learn all that, but actually we focus really heavily now, don't we, even as a firefighter, on your emotional intelligence and all of that great stuff that somebody brings, which is really, really important in being in the fire service.
I was at school and it was back in primary school, I must have been in year 3, I think, and we had the fire service come out and do like a talk with us, and they walked in and one of them was a female, and I was like, wow, like I didn't even know that was a thing. So I sort of sat there listening to their presentation, and I was like so inspired. I remember getting home, like testing the fire alarms. And then I just sort of always had this feeling in my head that I was going to be a firefighter one day. And I was waiting for that right time in my life where I was ready to apply. And obviously that was 2 years ago. I was 32, so 34 now. But I got in straight away and absolutely love it. And it never crossed my mind, like being a female. Like I knew females were in the job, but like growing up I'd then like seen many more females in the job and seen them out on fire engines, but when I joined it never crossed my mind like, oh, I'm a female here. Like I just felt like everyone else.
Because there's a really difficult like physical entry point, right, to get into the fire service. So did that not become a barrier at all for you?
Definitely knew that I had to work a little bit harder than what the men would have. So for me, the job-related tests was probably the most nervous I've ever been for any assessment. Even though I love going to the gym, I love running and things like that, because I had that thing in the back of my mind, knowing this is going to be a little bit harder for me, I need to push myself. And I will be honest, there's a simulation where you have to lift the 13.5 ladder with the rope. And I didn't pass it first time, and still to this day in service, I find it so hard. It weighs 105 kilos. If you have to lift it on your own, it's really heavy, like even for men, like not just women. But the nice thing about being in service is I've learned that it's a big teamwork game. Your crew learn your strengths and weaknesses. They know that's one of mine, so they always help me to try and fix that and get better with that. But also, if we're on a job, they know that's my limitation. So if we've got to get that ladder up quick, they just won't put me on it. So it works quite nicely in that sense.
So what's been the response of the men that you work with?
The men I work with have been great. Like as soon as I got on station, it was all about supporting me, building up my confidence. Anything that I didn't feel that I was overly confident with, we'd be out in the drill yard, practicing anything, knots and lines. So we have milestones throughout our apprenticeship. So the first one is like pumping ladders, knots and lines. So that would just be my sole focus. We'd just be outside drilling all the time. And they're just so supportive, all of them. Every day, even now, they'd be like, anything you want to work on today? And I'd be like, yeah, okay, let's go and do this, or let's go and do that. Yeah, I can't fault them in that sense. Really, really supportive.
About you, Sophia, what's your been experience?
Yeah, it's the same. I think your watch actually becomes your second family as well. Yeah, the relationships that I have with my colleagues is, yeah, it's like siblings, and the camaraderie is brilliant, the support for one another as well, you know. And yeah, like you say, anything you need to work on, they're like, all right, let's get on the drill yard, let's give it a go. And even when you're at jobs, really, they'll be like, oh, do you want to give this a go? Have you done this before? Yeah, supporting service is brilliant.
I think one of the funniest things that I ever had is, so I did my driving course and found out I was pregnant with my first son, and passed the test on a Friday, and then I had to ring my rider station officer, as he was then, to say, I've passed, but I'm pregnant. And he was like, oh. And you used to do your driving, you know, you still do, don't you, do your driving now? So I used to go to drill night, and we used to go up and do, up to one of the factories near where I live, to do pumping from open water. So one of the guys used to follow in the car so that I could get some hours in, but I was heavily pregnant. He drove up to this security gate, and I don't know if you ever drove, but when you were driving, you know, other road users would be like, oh my God, it's a woman driving. Well, of course, you could see these two gentlemen sat in this car, in this little hut, and my sub-officer said, get out. He said, look at their faces. And I was quite heavily pregnant. He said, get out and go and get the keys, see what they do. Honestly, how I kept a straight face, I sort of waddled up there and I said, can we have the keys to the gate? And they went, are you a firefighter? And I went, yeah. And he went, I went, I know. And just got back in and winked at him, and they were in fits. And then when we went to give the keys, and I went, I'm not on the run though.
I know that you've got a bit of a story around your family and how the policies have affected you, so tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so me and my wife, we've been in the adoption process since October 2023. So obviously as soon as we decided we were going to do that, I was looking at the maternity policy, the adoption policy, and they were the same back then, but then the maternity was out for consultation and it had changed to 6 months full pay. And I was like, oh, amazing, like surely the adoption policy is going to change as well. I checked it and it was still the old one. So I reached out to a few people and I said, like, what's the situation? And they said, oh, yeah, the adoption's staying as it is. And I was like, that's not fair. I'm not having that. So I sort of threw my toys out the pram a little bit and spoke to all the relevant people and highlighted the fact that, you know, people starting families through adoption might be through different reasons, you know, same-sex couples, people with disabilities, people who can't have children of their own. Why should we be at a disadvantage because we choose to start our family in a different way? And it was dealt with really quickly, to be fair, and the adoption policy now is exactly the same as the maternity.
Oh, amazing. What a change maker.
Yeah.
Well done, you, Nick.
Yeah.
Because again, it's about paving the way for others, isn't it? Because you've perhaps been the first person to acknowledge that, you know, that's relevant to you. I suppose maybe if no one else had highlighted it, you know, we wouldn't have known.
I know. I mean, the whole thing really has been a bit of a learning curve for everyone. Even like my station manager, you know, I've had to submit, so I'm actually taking maternity this time because I want to get my competency first. But I had to submit all this sort of paperwork, and they want evidence of when the child's going to be placed with us. It's like, well, I haven't got that yet because I haven't gone to panel. I'm just trying to let you know early. And it's so different to, you know, somebody carrying a child. But we're all learning together because, you know, other people haven't gone through this as well. And I think now I've done it, if there's going to be someone else in the future doing it, I can then help them and support them through it.
So if I was going to ask myself, as a young me, what I would change, or the advice that I would give myself would be, don't try to fit in, because I don't think you will fit in.
Yeah.
You know, you will always be, and I don't think it's just because you're a woman. I think that, you know, you can fit into a certain element. You're not going to fit in with everybody.
Yeah.
But it's just be yourself.
Yeah.
And be
It's
confident
okay
about
to be you,
Yeah.
because you're good enough.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly that. Yeah, don't doubt. I think I had a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah, all the time.
And I think, and you were saying this earlier about other people doubting themselves, and it's about people admitting it and having the honesty to admit that they doubt themselves.
Yeah, I think, you know, and when I speak to new members of staff, new firefighters, I say to my own team, if it's something bothering you in your gut, then let's talk about it. And I wish I'd had the confidence to do that, because I probably then turned things into things in my head that we could have got sorted out easier.
I think it's a shame to think about how many women have never considered being a firefighter as a career because they didn't realise that it was accessible to them as well. I know when I sort of got the job and was telling people, I had a female friend say to me, like, oh, that was always my dream career. And I said, well, why don't you go for it? And she said, oh, it's too late now, you know. And I'm too old for that now, which is such a shame because maybe back when she was younger, she didn't realise that she could apply, or maybe times were different back then. And it was, because I remember a male colleague saying to me that years and years ago, there actually used to be like height restrictions and things like that, which is crazy to me. I just couldn't imagine any of that. We didn't experience any of that applying.
When I joined, Cindy Phillips was the highest ranking woman in the fire service as a watch manager. And now we've got a whole row of chiefs who are women, and I think that's the biggest change, and all the ranks in between.
But not just, for me, not just in a uniformed position.
Yeah.
In female leaders at all sorts of different positions.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our organisation, but in other organisations.
Yeah, in fire staff as well.
Yeah, and not just women.
No.
All different backgrounds, and actually people are happy to share that and embrace that, which to me is amazing.
Having different people on station and visible to the general public, it's paving the way for everyone else. You know, if we've got a diverse workforce, then we're showing that to our communities, and you know, we're showing them that, you know, everybody in the fire service, we're welcoming to everybody, and anyone can do this job. And a diverse workforce creates different ideas, different backgrounds, different ways of doing things, and I think it creates the best watch available, I think.
I suppose, like, you know, you both early on in your experience. What's the future plans? Where do you see yourself? What's your goals?
I'd like to eventually down the line seek promotion. I think at the minute there's not many women wearing white helmets in the fire service. Of course, our chief is a female, which is fantastic. Personally, I only know of one other woman that's an officer in our service, but I do think within the next decade we will see more and more of that. It seems to be becoming more and more common. There's at least one female per watch now. I think it would be nice to have more and more women going for promotion in service, but also I'd love to have that experience of an all-women crew. You know, a driver, officer and 2BA in the back, because can you imagine the general public? They'd be like, whoa, I didn't think that was possible. But yeah, I think it's a bright future for women in the fire service.
I've been a massive advocate for this project because I think it's so important to show where we've been, where we are now, and of course what the future's really going to look like. And that is just testament to the work that we're doing, testament to all of the work in the diversity space of making women feel included. So I've been a massive advocate for this process and this project, and I'm just so happy to be part of it.
I was really honoured to be asked to be part of this project. I think it's really important for women who've gone through the fire service and have had all the experiences they've had to still be representing women and still be the face of the fire service and show that there is longevity in being a woman in the fire service, and that's really important to be visible to younger women and to young girls that are in schools and colleges who can aspire to, you know, be the face of the fire service, you know, for the future.
Being a woman in a male-dominated service is something that's very progressive and significant, and it's about creating that as a normality in society. It's great to represent that women can do things that men can as well, that we are just as capable, and hopefully with projects getting exposure like this one, maybe one day we'll have a service of 50-50 with men and women across the board.
If I can show other women what you can be, what you see you can be, I may influence and support others through this, because we can do it. That's what I felt, so it's important to take that time, and particularly in the position I'm in now, in helping others behind me, put that ladder down and bring people up with us.
Oh, la la la. But